Controversial fight. Controversial fight. What did I see? I just rewatched the fight right now. I was there live actually, but I rewatched it now. Watching it live was very difficult. Lots of people around, lots of distractions. However, I did now just watch it live. The replay. And I gotta say, I do agree with the judges. So many people have talked to me about this fight. It's only been about 48 hours. I'm in the gym. The guys are like, no, I thought he won. No, I thought Dricus won. Everybody's split on this fight. I saw Du Plessis win 3 out of 5 rounds quite comfortably. I'm giving Sean Strickland round 1, and I'm giving Sean Strickland round 5. And both of those rounds were really close. Round 1 and 5. However, 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4. I had to give it to DDP, but it's not because of the takedowns. A lot of you are going to be like, Coach, you make too much out of the takedowns. I agree. He didn't do much with his takedowns. He got the fight to the ground, and he didn't do much, so I'm not counting it for much. The vast majority of the rounds were all striking. The vast majority. We got to count the striking. The striking's got to take precedence. And I'll tell you, I think even though Strickland was busy, Du Plessis landed the bigger shots, the more damaging blows. Guys, make sure to use Holiday 50 off and get anything 50% off on jujiclub.com. I just released Kimura Made Easy, top position Kimura. Check it out. We have, of course, Strong and Stable Back, A Man's Guide to Throwing a Punch. You absolutely must collect these videos. Everybody should have a boxing routine. Make sure to use Holiday 50 off. Please make sure to use that promo code, and it will give you 50% off. I'm going to make a poll in the chat. Who won? I know all you crazy kids out there are all going to disagree and agree with one another. Who won? I'm going to put option 1, Strickland. I should have done this before. And 2, I'm going to put DDP. It's going to be really easy. Start the poll. I think DDP won. And I'm not going by the takedowns. I think the takedowns were the cherry on top. Yes, it sometimes when you have a close round and all there really is a takedown and some control. He didn't do much with the takedown, but it was really, I'm counting his striking. Guys, Du Plessis is a very, very experienced kickboxer. He's a professional kickboxer turned MMA fighter. He's picked up the wrestling. He's put on a lot of muscle. If you go back and look at his kickboxing years, he wasn't nowhere near this muscular. I don't know how you put on that much muscle. He put on a mountain of muscle. You look at his back. Goodness gracious, what's going on with that man's back? Du Plessis' back looks like a Mount Rushmore. Doesn't make any sense to me. However, nonetheless, he's put on mountains of muscles, and he's developed a very powerful double leg, a very powerful single leg, a very powerful explosive shot. He ran Strickland over with his takedowns. Strickland had some nice sprawls, but he got caught by surprise. DDP was able to blast through, drive through the legs, put him on his butt. And I didn't even give him the rounds because of that. I gave him the rounds because I felt that Du Plessis landed the bigger shots. Now in round 5, Sean Strickland came alive, started throwing overhand rights. He connected a few overhand rights throughout the entire fight, but he was winging them in round 5. I think he was looking for a possible finish. A lot of people questioned DDP's conditioning. A lot of people thought he doesn't have the style to do 5 rounds. He's good for 3 rounds. He's very explosive. He's in your face. And he's very dangerous for 3 rounds, but we've seen him gas. We've seen him breathe heavy. We've seen him win the fight and look really exhausted. And people wonder, hey, what if you were dragged into a deeper fight? What would happen in rounds 4 and 5? Well, we saw for the first time, Dricus Du Plessis gets into round 4, round 5, and he looked incredible. His output, his wrestling, he stayed strong the whole way. No signs of fading. Sean Strickland, no surprise. He never fades, doesn't slow down. Exhaustion is never even seems to be a factor in his fighting ability. I don't think I've ever seen Strickland get tired. I don't think ever. I can't even think of one fight, even his earlier fights. Even when he was in trouble, I felt like his conditioning was always, it wasn't a question. He was always had conditioning. That was never the problem. Du Plessis threw a lot of nice kicks, but most of them were checked. Most of them were checked by Sean Strickland. I was very impressed with his kicking defense. He did a great job blocking the kicks, but there were a few kicks that went upstairs to the head, partially blocked by Strickland. Du Plessis did a very good job kicking. He did a good job with the punching. He did a good job with the kicking. It almost was like Strickland was the boxer, Du Plessis was the kickboxer. And I know they both kickbox and I know they both box, of course, but Sean was relying more on his hands. Du Plessis was relying more on switching and throwing a combination, punch and feet, kick and feet, and more wrestling. So I'm going to go out there and say it. I think Du Plessis won because he was more well-rounded than Strickland. Strickland was not attempting any takedowns. I think Strickland kind of attempted one partial takedown. Like he kind of like grabbed him, but it wasn't a serious takedown attempt. His whole game plan was to box. And of course, he threw some front kicks. Strickland always throws that front kick. Very little round kicks. Very heavy boxing. I think he was a little bit predictable. Du Plessis knew exactly what to expect throughout the whole fight, whereas Du Plessis was throwing surprising kicks, surprising doubles, and switching stance, throwing overhand lefts, overhand rights, switching stances, was more dynamic, was more, had more variety. And I think that's what won him the fight. Constant pressure and variety. He had Strickland guessing. And every time Strickland threw that jab and everything, Strickland has a great jab, a great 1-2, a great right hand. But it seems like Du Plessis knew everything Strickland was going to throw at him. He was never really caught by surprise. And that's what I think ultimately won him the fight. Okay, guys, with that said, I want to hear your comments and questions. I'm looking at the poll here. I'm not going to end it just yet, but we're already at 55 to 45 in favor of DDP. Close, but I would say that the majority of you will end up, I think it's going to end up 60-40. I think if we rewatch that fight, we take out the emotions, DDP won that fight. It was a close fight. All the rounds were close. All the rounds were extremely competitive. Okay, guys, with that said, I'm doing only questions and comments on this fight. I'm going to come back to the poll in a little bit. He didn't look much bigger than Strickland to me. That's from Herbert. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm telling you is DDP used to fight at 170. Go back and watch his old fights and compare his physique with it now. I mean, it's just a monstrous difference, okay? Go back and check his old fights and let me know what you think about his physique. It's incredible. There was no headbutts, no video footage of a headbutt. That's from Khair. You know what? I noticed there was a cut on Strickland. Strickland was bleeding. I didn't see what caused it. I watched the fight twice. And I could tell you that each time I missed what it was exactly that cut Strickland. I wasn't sure. 100 votes. What do we have here in the 182 votes? We got 51% DDP. Dropped 49% Strickland. Incredible. Wow, I'm going to let this ride out. But I'm very, very, very impressed on how close this fight is in the eyes of the public. Those rounds were close, guys. It's all interpretation. I love how people could see it different ways. Why did Strickland land way more strike? That's from Patty Cake, Patty Pie. Look, Strickland, the way he punches, he moves, he just twitches almost. It's almost like a little twitch. Okay, so because he does a lot with very little energy, he could throw more shots without fatiguing himself. He has a beautiful ability to snap his punches. It's incredible. His punching ability is fantastic. He did land more statistically, but I felt like the bigger shots were coming from Du Plessis. Again, hard to tell. You're not the one eating the shots. I'm not the one eating the shots. It's very difficult to tell. It was crazy close. Look, if Sean Strickland won, I wouldn't have came here and argued. I would have said, look, I saw Du Plessis, but it was so close, it's a toss-up. That's what I'm trying to tell you. When I rewatched it, I do think Du Plessis had an edge, and not because of the takedowns, because I felt he landed the more damaging strikes. However, if they said, and it was Sean Strickland, I would come out here and tell you guys, look, I don't agree necessarily with the decision, but I ain't going to fight about it because it was close. It was just so close. Nothing wrong with calling a draw. Everyone loves a rematch. Let the fighters decide. That's from Ian Patterson. I totally agree. It should have been a draw. Both guys get their full purse and let them do it again. It was an incredible fight. I love the fight. I thought it was incredibly entertaining. The crowd was into it, especially round 5. Everybody was on their feet, screaming, yelling, cheering. What a fight. Joe Rogan and Dana White said Sean won it. That's from Jonathan. Jonathan, I could see it that way too. It all depends how you interpret it. Strickland landed more often. DDP landed some bigger shots. It's so razor close. I don't know what to tell you. I could see it both ways. Okay, let's leave it at that. I could see it both ways. If Strickland had more diversity in his striking, do you think it would have changed the decision? That's from Tamer. I think he could have surprised Du Plessis. I think Du Plessis kind of expected what Sean was going to do. He had a good game plan, and there was no element of surprise. Whereas with Du Plessis, he did a lot of stuff, I think, that surprised Strickland. And if you watch that fight, Strickland blocked a lot of kicks earlier on, and then the kicks started connecting later in the round. Du Plessis came back to the kicks. And I mean, that scores, kicks score. Now, Strickland also countered one of the kicks. Du Plessis threw a low kick, and Strickland hammers him with a right hand. Hammers him. If you watch the replay, kind of glanced off the shoulder, but it's still, live, it was like the people were like, oh, I think it was round 3. I can't remember. I'm not remembering, but a big right hand counter. But then he went back to the kicks again later, and he was scoring some kicks. More diversity from Du Plessis, more volume from Sean Strickland. Very difficult to call. We're in the chat room at 278 votes. Let me tell you, we're at 50-50. That's how crazy close this fight was. Salam, coach. I still feel like Adesanya is levels above them. How many title defenses do you think DDP will have? And could you make me moderator? Saeed, you're a gentleman and a scholar, so I will make you monitor. But please behave. I don't want to have to execute you. Can manage block words. Okay, I'm gonna make you standard moderator. All right, Mr. Saeed. Who's the greatest middleweight of all time? One day I'll do a poll, but for me, it's still Anderson Silva. Okay, for me, but because he got caught on steroids, for me, if you get caught on PEDs, I gotta eliminate you. But if you don't eliminate the PED thing, if you're one of those guys who's more forgiving in that instance, I would say it's still Anderson Silva because it was a golden age. It was just something very special during that time. And Adesanya, as great as he is, Anderson just had more of a mystique. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because it was such a time of growth in MMA that I have that bias. But I will tell you that Anderson Silva just did things in the octagon that didn't make sense. He was like the Roy Jones Jr. of MMA. Okay. Now, Adesanya, in my opinion, if he fights DDP, this is going to be a very, very hard fight. I don't agree that he's levels above. I think he could be better. He could win. I'd have to go do a full analysis, but DDP is no easy fight for anybody. He's champion right now. If Adesanya gets a title shot, I would tell you something right now without doing a video analysis of how their two styles are going to match up. DDP is a very tough cookie to crack. He's a great kickboxer, and he has a crazy ability to drive through the legs, to blast double. Really incredible ability. He's a tough... And look, if I would tell you, if Sean fought Adesanya again, I still think it would be really tough for Adesanya. Very tough. Tough fight. I think if you throw Khamzat in there, it's a very tough fight for Adesanya. Very tough fight. There's so many tough fights for Adesanya. I can't say that he's levels above and it's a walk in the park and he's cleaned out the division. Absolutely not. Where I could say that about Anderson Silva. There was a time and place where he cleaned out the entire division. There seemed to be no hope for anybody to beat him.